Hi friends, hope you're all enjoying the day so far. For today's video, I thought I would do something that I've had quite a few requests about, and that is prenatal yoga modifications. So this is something that I definitely had to learn from experience. I feel like during my last pregnancy, I would be in a pose and I would look around, I'm like, I don't really know if this is right, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. So since I just recently finished my 200-hour yoga teacher training, we learned a lot of awesome prenatal yoga tips that have helped me a lot during this pregnancy. So I'm excited to share all of those tips with you. Just something to keep in mind, make sure you always talk to a doctor or your midwife before making any fitness changes, especially while you're pregnant. So I'm going to go over a few of the most common poses and just some rules of thumb that you can keep in mind when you go to a class that will hopefully help you modify along the way and enjoy yoga, because it's a great workout during your pregnancy. So let's go ahead and get started. So just like I mentioned before, there are a few rules of thumb that you can just kind of keep in mind as you go into your practice. So the first one is, during pregnancy with any workout, you want to focus on maintaining and not adding. So if you didn't do it before your pregnancy and you're like, oh, I want to try some crazy inversion, don't do that while you're pregnant. Focus on maintaining where you're at and know that you can progress from there after the baby's born. So stick with what your body knows and try not to push the boundaries too much. This is really prevalent in yoga because we're really tempted to stretch and get into the full expression of all of the poses. We have a lot of relaxing coursing through our bodies, and what that does is it makes us really flexible as it is. So you want to focus on stability and not flexibility. So if you have all that relaxing going through, it's really easy to overstretch the muscles. We don't want to do that. So try not to go to your max, just stick with where you feel comfortable and where you feel stable. So the first rule of thumb that we want to keep in mind practicing yoga while we're pregnant is to make room for the baby. So during a lot of the poses, I feel like everything's compressed, and as your belly's growing, you can't really get into those poses the same way. So a basic one would be forward fold, arms come up, exhale down, oh, belly's in the way. So you want to make room for the baby. So you're just going to walk your feet out. You'll take a wider stance for almost everything, and you'll be able to do your forward fold from there, and your baby has some room right there in the middle. The same thing goes when you're standing. A lot of the times they'll say heels together. You can't really make room for the baby there, so you'll just step wider, bend your knees as much as you need to, and you'll be able to forward fold from there. So don't be afraid to widen your stance as much as you need to feel comfortable. So the second thing that we want to remember is to avoid crossing the midline of the body. So this goes for a lot of the revolved postures, so like revolved triangle, revolved crescent lunge. They'll often have you up in this pose. All right, so we're right here in our crescent lunge, knee stacked right over the ankle, back leg as straight as possible, press back through the heel, heels lifted. We'll raise your arms up, drop through your shoulders, create that nice stability here. Try to avoid sinking too low. They'll have you bring your hands to your heart center, and usually they'll have you twist to the opposite side. You want to avoid crossing the midline of the body. Comes back to the whole making room for baby thing, so it's really uncomfortable. So you're going to twist the opposite direction. Okay, so chances are that you'll be looking at your neighbor. People might look at you like you're going the wrong way. Just own it. Always feel free to turn the opposite way. So same thing goes for triangle. You're in your triangle pose right here. Everyone else might be going the other way. I actually got called out during a class. The instructor was a dude, and he was like, you're going the wrong way. And I just owned it and smiled. So avoid crossing the midline of the body. So the third thing that we want to remember is you want to avoid any supine or prone positions, especially after your first trimester. What I like to do is to try to think about what muscle group we're working on. So if they're on their stomach and they're working on something like a heart opener, so they're doing like a cobra or a bow pose, you can do your own version of that heart opener without lying on your stomach. So a really, really great example for that is to do camel pose instead. So you'll just come up onto your knees, you can tuck your toes or have them pressing into the floor. Bring your hands into your invisible back pockets, bring your elbows back, drop your shoulders, keep your gaze forward, and just start to tilt back from here. So if that feels good, you can stay right here. It's a really nice stretch. If you're used to going in to full camel, you can always reach back and start to press up through your hips. So there's an option right there. So that's a really good heart opening substitution. If they're doing something like locust pose or something that engages more into the low back, good option for that is to come onto your hands and knees and just work on some spinal extensions right there. So make sure to keep the spine nice and long, nice and straight, and just extend one leg out, press back through the heel, and extend the opposite arm. So something else that you're going to see a lot during a yoga class, especially if you go to a flow class, is your vinyasa. So they come down into chaturanga, come into upward facing dog, and then downward facing dog. Thankfully, I've been able to kind of work this one around this pregnancy. I still go into my chaturanga, but then for my upward facing dog, I go straight into it, and I don't come down low enough so that my belly touches the floor. I don't know how much longer that will last. So an option for that instead. So usually they'll come back, walk into plank pose. So you're here in your full plank, or you can be on your knees. Make sure to keep your hips in line with your body. So then we're gonna lower down into chaturanga. You can modify that right here. Inhale, baby cobra, full cobra. Make sure your belly is not pressing into the floor. Tuck your toes, downward facing dog. Instead, if that doesn't work, you're gonna come onto your hands and knees. So we come into our plank pose. Then they're gonna say lower down into chaturanga. You're gonna place your knees down and you're gonna round your spine. Inhale, upward facing dog. Inhale, round through your back, arch your back, gaze goes up. And then you'll meet everyone else in downward facing dog. So instead of doing the whole chaturanga push-up and then your cobra or upward facing dog, you'll just do a cat-cow and then meet everyone in downward facing dog. So it matches the timing perfectly. So I think that's pretty much it. Oh, another thing you want to avoid too while you're pregnant is anything that could cause you to fall or cause any type of trauma to your belly. So if your balance is unstable, I like to set up close to a wall. So you know the wall's there, so if you're doing any balancing poses, you can always hold on to the wall if you need to for extra support. So for some of the poses on your back that you'll want to skip, any type of core work is probably a good idea. You don't want to work too much into the rectus abdominis or into your obliques. Everything's separating while you're pregnant, so you kind of want to just let it do its thing and not disrupt it. So a good option instead is always plank, a regular or modified plank. That's going to work more into your transverse abdominis, which helps to stabilize you. So you can have knees down on the floor, drop through your hips, or you can come all the way up onto here. Bridge pose is usually okay if that feels good for you. Just be careful coming down and getting back up. So this usually actually feels pretty good and helps to work into the stabilizing the glutes and targeting to those hamstrings as well. So just press up through the hips, ground through your shoulders. A tricky one can be Savasana. So you're like, everyone's on their back, what am I supposed to do? So for that one, you always have the option to lie on your side instead. And same thing goes for any of the other poses on your back. So if they're doing, I can't remember the name of it right now, to be honest with you. When you bring your knee in, it's releasing pose. I'm gonna Google that after I film this. But you are usually on your back right here. You'll just come up onto your side and pull your knee in up towards that shoulder. And gently keep it away from the belly. So same thing. But another one is Savasana. So everyone's on their back. So you can lie on your side instead. You can place a pillow or a block in between your knees to help get some of that pressure off of the hips. My favorite way to do this one is to grab a bolster. They're pretty long, like oblong shaped pillows that they have in the yoga studios. I'll just show you with this throw pillow that I have right here. But you'll get your long bolster and then you'll place a block on top of it. So we'll pretend that's a block. And then you'll lie all the way onto your back. Knees can come wide, knees can extend out. Hands open at your sides, close your eyes. And that is a super dreamy, comfortable place for a preggy to be. So hopefully that helps you out for those supine positions. If you have any questions, something I missed, definitely shout it out in the comments or leave a comment on my blog. So I hope that this was helpful. If you are expecting, congratulations, and thanks so much for watching. I'll see you later. Bye.